Hey guys, tonight we're going to travel back to the 1300s, so take a slow breath as you picture this. You're standing in a cramped medieval room, smoky from a weak hearth fire that never quite warms your frozen toes. The wooden shutters rattle in the wind, straw strewn across a stone floor squeaks underfoot, and you see a low, lumpy bed stuffed with who knows what. It smells of sweat, damp wool and ashes. The walls are sooty, the ceiling drips cold, and outside, wolves howl somewhere you really don't want to go. You're going to sleep here. Sitting up, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shift closer to the fire, which cracks and hisses angrily, as if it resents having to work at all in this freezing room. Your eyelids droop, but you're not sure lying down is a great idea. Everyone around you seems content to prop themselves at an angle, half sitting, half reclining against bolsters, rolled up cloaks, or if they're fancy, a stuffed pillow. It's not exactly your memory foam mattress, but who are you to complain when the alternative is rolling over into a pest-infested floor? The bed itself creaks as you settle. It's little more than a frame with ropes or planks across it, topped with a tick stuffed with straw, feathers if you're lucky, but often straw, and crawling things you don't want to think about. You wriggle, trying to find the least lumpy spot. The ropes sag in the middle. Someone might need to tighten them with a bed key, a little crank used to twist them taut again, which is how the phrase, sleep tight, supposedly started. Historians still argue whether that's the true origin or just a charming folk etymology, but hey, you'll take anything to distract from the cold. You glance around the room. It's not a bedroom in the modern sense, more like a multi-purpose chamber. A few stools, a chest that doubles as a seat, maybe a tiny table for candlelight scribbling. The hearth is your only real heat source, smoking thickly because chimneys are still a newfangled idea in many places. The air feels gritty in your lungs. The wind keens outside like a banshee auditioning for a horror movie. And the smell? Oh boy. No indoor plumbing. That corner over there? That's your chamber pot. The one that someone is going to kick over in the dark at 2 a.m. You wrinkle your nose and pull your blanket closer. It's wool, scratchy enough to leave marks on your skin. You're wearing most of your clothes to bed because layering is survival. A linen shift if you have one, maybe two. It's a gamble every night whether you'll sweat or freeze. Funny thing, even the rich don't sleep all that differently in principle. Sure, they've got canopies, thick feather mattresses, tapestries lining the walls to block drafts. The four-poster design with curtains isn't just for romance. It's to trap what little warmth you can manage in a room that bleeds heat like a stabbed wineskin. The effect is less opulent palace and more camping in a fancy tent indoors. You listen to someone cough in the corner. That's not unusual. Respiratory infections love these conditions. The air is full of soot and dust. No air purifiers humming in the background. You realize you're going to inhale ashes and animal dander as you drift off. The fire hisses. The room grows gloomier. You try to adjust again, but the bed doesn't give. No springs yet. Just your bones against the straw. If you're very poor, you might be on the floor itself, with just straw strewn about. Or sharing a mattress with family, because heating that many bodies together is the cheapest method around. Privacy? Ha! You're lucky if you're not wedged up against a snoring uncle or a distant cousin who drools in their sleep. Speaking of that, people are used to sharing beds with non-family too. Traveling merchants bunk up with strangers at inns, peasants on pilgrimage cram into dormitory-style setups, even nobles occasionally bed share for warmth when traveling. Social norms about personal space are, let's say, looser. You're not worried about germs so much as freezing to death. There's a certain sense of camaraderie in it, though. You chat softly before falling asleep, voices muffled under blankets. Maybe share rumors or gossip. A A stolen joke about the local reeve. You think you hear someone in the next bed mumbling about taxes and tithes even now. You stifle a laugh. Taxes are forever. You listen to the crackle of the fire. The shadows from the single tallow candle stretch tall and monstrous on the walls. You wonder if they'll burn themselves out safely. Fires are terrifying hazards. Whole villages have gone up in smoke because someone fell asleep too deeply. Wealthier households might have fire guards, metal screens in front of the hearth. But even then, you've got to be vigilant. You pull the blanket tighter around you, feeling the rough seams scratch your neck. You close your eyes, trying to block out the snoring around you. But sleep isn't what you think of today. You won't just collapse for 8 hours straight. Most people do what's called segmented sleep. First sleep, then a waking period around midnight. People get up, stoke the fire, say prayers, chat quietly, maybe even visit neighbors in some cases. Then second sleep until dawn. But that's tomorrow's problem. For now, you're focused on keeping warm. You might tuck a heated brick or metal pan at your feet if you're lucky enough to have one. You hear someone cursing softly as their pan goes cold. It's a losing battle against the draft coming under the door. A rat scuttles somewhere you really wish it wouldn't. You keep still. Maybe it'll leave you alone. You try to remember the last time you bathed. Best not to think about that. Baths are risky, everyone says. They open your pores to dangerous airs. That's why everyone's a bit pungent. The room is ripe with it. You rest your head back and feel the lumpy stuffing shift. Someone claims the lumps keep demons away. You doubt it, but you're not in the mood to challenge centuries of superstition. The wind wails outside. The fire pops. Someone shifts next to you, pulling the blanket tighter. You watch the candle gutter, half praying it doesn't blow out and leave you in total darkness. Then again, maybe that's better than seeing all the scuttling things that share your room. You exhale slowly, your breath visible in the cold. You try not to shiver too hard, and you wonder, how did anyone find this restful? You keep your eyes half open, the candlelight flickering in a way that makes shadows dance like hunchbacked little goblins across the soot-stained walls. You're not asleep yet, and that's perfectly normal here in the 1300s. Because, lucky you, you're in the middle of what they call your first sleep. That's right. People didn't just conk out for one solid 8-hour stretch like your smug, modern memory foam lifestyle suggests. No, you sleep in 2 separate chunks. You drift into slumber soon after sunset, because what else is there to do without Netflix or LED lamps? And you'll wake around midnight or so in this inky cold room for an hour or two of what people politely called watching. But watching what? The fire that's trying to die out on you? The rats plotting their revolution in the corner? The snores of your brother, who's one snort away from sucking the roof in? You slowly sit up, wrapped in your blanket like an exhausted caterpillar. The wind outside batters the shutters, but you're getting used to that sound. It's almost cozy if you squint hard enough. You see other people in the room stirring too. Some yawn, some roll over. A few light tiny oil lamps, carefully shielded with glass to avoid an inferno. During this waking time, people do all sorts of things. Pray, mend clothes, even chat with neighbors who might drop in. That's right, this isn't weird back then. A midnight visit is normal, like the world's most inconvenient social call. You'd go to your neighbor's hearth, murmur about local gossip, and return for second sleep before dawn. Historians still argue whether this split sleep was entirely natural. Some claim it was just a byproduct of having no artificial light, so people fell asleep as soon as it was dark and woke up when they weren't quite done resting. Others say it was a culturally enforced rhythm, a sanctioned time to reflect or even be romantic. Yes, some couples planned a bit of a conjugal conversation in the middle of the night, away from the kids who slept next to them like limp scarecrows. You adjust your position on the creaking ropes of the bed. Your back is already sore. The tick mattress is uneven. And you realize this sitting up style isn't just about the bed, it's about habit. When you wake in the dark, you don't want to lie completely flat. That's for the dead, after all. Flat on your back is a bit too much like a funeral shroud pose. Your mother told you that once. Lie too flat and the spirits will think you're ready to join them. A comforting bedtime story, truly. So you prop yourself up against a bundle of rags, knees drawn up a little. You watch your father stir the embers with a stick, sending a soft glow bouncing around the walls. Someone coughs wetly, another reminder the cold and the damp are perfect for breeding illnesses. No antibiotics, remember. You're one chill away from your last rites. It's not just your family in here. Extended family, servants if you're rich enough to have them, even visitors might be bedded down in the same room. Privacy is less a right and more of a laughable fantasy. You shift and try not to look at your uncle snoring so hard his lips flap like a horse's. Someone starts humming a hymn in the corner. Religious observance is built into this waking time. Monks do this on purpose, of course. Canonical hours, the scheduled prayers through the night, have trickled into lay society. Not that you're leaping up to do lauds in perfect Latin, but you might mumble an Ave or two. You glance at the ceiling, wondering if it's going to drop more dust on you. The roof beams creak. A draft threads its icy fingers under the door. You pull your blanket tighter and wonder what the peasants in their one-room cottages are doing right now. Probably the same thing. Except they're lucky if they have a single bed frame. More likely they're on straw on the floor, pressed together for heat like puppies. You scratch your arm absently. Don't think about fleas. Don't think about lice. It's not that hygiene is unknown, it's just well hard. Water has to be heated. Soap is lye-based and rough, and too much bathing is risky. Doctors say it weakens you, opens your pores to bad airs, so you make do with dry scrubbing, changing shifts, and prayer. During this waking period you can do little chores. Fix a torn sleeve by firelight. Stir the stew pot to keep it from going off. Or just sit, dozing upright, listening to the room breathe. The glow from the hearth is dim, and you watch the logs collapse in on themselves. You remember being told as a child, first sleep is for the body, second sleep is for the soul. Sounds poetic, but you suspect the truth is no one has any better ideas for passing time in this freezing darkness. Your father mutters to himself about the harvest. Your mother hushes a fussy child, trying to convince them to be still for a little longer. The dog by the door opens one eye, yawns, and goes back to its doggy dreams. You might even consider stepping outside to relieve yourself. If you're lucky, there's a chamber pot in the corner, but let's face it, it's already suspiciously full. The truly brave might risk opening the door, trudging through icy mud to the latrine, hoping nothing lurks in the dark. But you're not that brave. The pot will have to do. You wrinkle your nose as you hear someone use it. Charming. This waking period isn't exactly restful, but it's not unpleasant either. It's social time, weirdly intimate in a world without phones or clocks ticking at you every second. Time itself feels different, looser, less urgent. You let your eyes drift shut again, feeling your body ask for more sleep. But you hold off a moment longer, watching the last log crumble into a bed of coals. Someone stirs it, coaxing a feeble glow. It's quiet. Not silent, never silent. The wind howls, someone snores, the fire pops. But you're used to those sounds, they're your lullaby. You shift, pull your blanket higher, rest your head on your rolled-up cloak. You exhale. Second sleep is coming. You feel your eyelids grow heavy again, settling back into the scratchy embrace of your blanket. This time, you're careful to stay propped up. Lying fully flat? Not tonight. Not any night. Because here in the 1300s, you don't just drift off horizontal like you're laid out for your own funeral. You sleep sitting up, or at least partially reclined, chest raised, head supported by a bundle of rags, a wooden headboard, or a fancy pillow if you're flush with coin. Why? Well, that's the question. As you squirm to get comfortable, you can almost hear the local barber surgeon's wisdom rattling in your ears. Sleeping flat, he warns solemnly, invites death. Cheery, right? You want to roll your eyes, but there's some logic to their terror. See, medieval medicine is still steeped in the ancient Greek theory of the four humors. You know the drill. Black bile, yellow bile, blood, phlegm, all having a chaotic office party in your body that needs constant management. If you lie flat, these humors might pool incorrectly, especially phlegm, threatening to drown you in your sleep. That's right. Medieval people are convinced you might literally suffocate on your own juices if you have the gall to lie flat on your back. You shift a bit, feeling the ropes of the bed creak. The straw mattress is uneven under you, lumps threatening to knead your kidneys into submission. But you stay propped up. Everyone does. Even the rich in their luxurious four-posters with embroidered pillows make sure their heads are raised. Historians still argue whether this practice was purely medical paranoia or a reaction to other practical concerns, like, say, the ever-present threat of coughing yourself to death. Tuberculosis, pneumonia, take your pick. Propped up sleeping eases breathing in a world without decongestants or antibiotics. And let's not forget that whole problem with reflux. You ever eat a medieval dinner? Probably heavy on bread, ale, some fatty meat if you're lucky. Imagine that sloshing in your gut all night. Elevating your torso helps keep the bile where it belongs. You hear your neighbor in the next bed shift too, grumbling as he adjusts the bolster behind his back. It's not exactly ergonomic, but he'd rather be uncomfortable than dead. The room smells of tallow smoke, sweat, and damp wool. You cough lightly, immediately regretting it, because coughing isn't just a nuisance here. It's a warning sign. Families watch each other with wary eyes if a cough turns wet. It's why so many people believe sleeping propped up is life-saving. You glance at the small fire, sputtering in the hearth, a luxury in itself. Many people don't even have fireplaces in their sleeping spaces. They huddle in shared rooms for body heat. Others, too poor for even that, might sleep sitting upright against a wall, cloaks pulled tight, hoping to trick their bodies into rest despite the cold. It's not just rural peasants either. Urban tenements, with their cramped shared rooms, offer little in the way of comfort. Beds are often shared between multiple workers, sometimes even in shifts if space is tight. Ever heard of hot bedding? Not as scandalous as it sounds. Just a way for one person to sleep in a bed that's still warm from the last occupant. You suppress a laugh, imagining explaining that to your modern friends. You shift again. The ropes under your straw mattress need tightening. Sleep tight, they say, though you doubt it makes much difference tonight. Your knees are drawn up slightly. It's not quite sitting, not quite lying. Your back is grateful for the support, even as your neck complains. There's something defensive about it, too. Upright sleep lets you react quickly. If someone breaks in, if the fire catches, if a rat decides your face looks like a nice route to explore. And well, death is never far away. Lying flat is too reminiscent of how you'll be laid out for your funeral. A superstition says you're inviting the reaper to test drive your pose. Even among the faithful, no one wants to tempt fate. You watch the candle's flame gutter in a draft, the shadows stretch, black fingers reaching across rough-hewn walls. The room holds its collective breath. You can hear the sleep-heavy breathing of your family, the occasional mutter, the shuffle of someone adjusting their cloak. It's surprisingly communal. No one questions it. No one demands privacy or their own room. You're all in this together, and if someone snores, well, at least they're breathing. You pull your blanket tighter. You're wearing your shift. Or, if you're a bit wealthier, a nightgown, carefully embroidered but still stiff in all the wrong places. You haven't bathed in days, maybe weeks. Water is hard to heat. Soap is harsh. And everyone says too much bathing will make you sick anyway. So you live with it. Everyone does. Your father once told you the story of a neighbor who slept too flat, found cold the next morning. Was it pneumonia? Was it superstition? Hard to say. But no one forgot. You watch a spark from the fire drift upward, then die. The scent of smoke is oddly comforting. Familiar. It's how you know the hearth is still doing its best to keep you alive. You hear someone stir. Maybe it's time for that midnight prayer. Even here, in this cramped, smoky room, faith is woven through your routines. A quick paternoster mumbled through sleepy lips. You join in, not wanting to stand out. Outside, the wind howls like a hungry beast. The shutters rattle. You're grateful you're inside, even if inside feels barely safer. You shift again, testing the ropes under you. Still loose. Someone will need to wind them tight in the morning. Another chore among many. But for now, you're resigned to the uneven support. You draw your knees up a little higher. Rest your head carefully against the rolled-up cloak behind you. You exhale. The cold is biting at your nose, but your chest feels free enough. Your head is raised. You're safe. Safe enough anyway. The candle flickers one last time before it gutters out, leaving only the red glow of coals in the hearth. The darkness wraps around you like another blanket. You close your eyes and hope your humors behave themselves tonight. You shift in your lumpy straw mattress, listening to the sound of someone rolling over on the other side of the room. It's not even a big room. A single chamber is often all you get. No guest bedroom, no nursery, no ensuite. This is medieval sleeping at its most honest, crammed, cold, and communal. Your eyes scan the space. By the glow of the hearth, you can just make out the shapes of other beds. But bed is a generous term. For the poor, you see a simple pile of straw on the floor. No frame, no ropes, no fancy feather ticks. Just old clothes and maybe a rough wool blanket pulled over them. The straw is scattered with debris from the day. Bits of chaff, dirt from boots no one thought to take off, maybe the odd beetle. You see someone shift under their ragged cloak, coughing softly, trying not to wake the others. Your own bed is a little better. A wooden frame, ropes strung across it, mattress on top, if you can call it that. It's a big sack filled with straw that's seen too many seasons. It rustles every time you move, like you're nesting in dry leaves. Occasionally something bites you. You try not to think about it. Then your eyes drift to the good bed in the room. Maybe your father's, or the local Reeves if you're visiting. That one has a proper tick stuffed with feathers. It's seen better days, feathers poking through in a dozen places. The cloth is stained in ways best left unexamined. But it's warm, it's softer. You watch as its occupant snores loudly, mouth agape, head resting on a bolster that looks like it was once luxurious. It's flattened with use now, but still enough to keep the head elevated. Because remember, no one's lying flat if they can help it. If you're very rich, like nobility rich, you might sleep in a towering four-poster bed. Heavy carved wood, draped in thick curtains to hold in the heat. Tapestries on the walls to block the worst of the drafts. A feather mattress so fat you sink halfway to the floor. But even there, it's not all comfort. The bed curtains are heavy, but can trap smoke if you're not careful. The feather ticking can get moldy in the damp. And everyone's afraid of fires. One dropped candle and your fancy bed becomes a funeral pyre. You remember once hearing about a local lord whose entire household burned in their sleep. No one even noticed until the roof caved in. So you pull your blanket closer and eye the hearth, checking that the embers aren't spitting too aggressively. Meanwhile, your cousin shifts on the floor mat. They're not even pretending they'll sleep well. The mat is straw sewn into a rough cover, thin enough that every stone in the floor below might as well be engraved into their spine. They've laid an old cloak over it for extra padding. It's not helping. You suppress a laugh at the thought of telling them about your modern mattress. Memory foam, gel layers, adjustable bases. Oh, the luxury. You feel the ropes under you sag. They'll need tightening. There's a tool for that, a bed key, a simple handle you slot into the side to twist and pull the ropes taut again. Sleep tight, they call it. Historians still argue whether that phrase really comes from this practice. Some say it's just a folk etymology that caught on later. But you don't care. It's a good story, and you're clinging to any distraction from the cold. You cough softly. The smoke from the hearth is thick tonight. The room isn't ventilated well. Chimneys are newfangled, expensive, or non-existent in many homes. A simple hole in the roof might let some smoke out if it isn't plugged by snow or debris. Your eyes water. You wipe them on your sleeve, which doubles as your napkin, your handkerchief, and let's be honest, your tissue. You sniff. Everyone does. The air is heavy with damp wool, sweat, and the sharp tang of unwashed bodies. Bathing is rare. Dangerous, some say. opens your pores to bad airs, so you make do with wiping down now and then. Maybe a special bath for religious festivals if you're lucky, or rich, or both. You roll onto your side trying to find a less lumpy spot. Your hip bone hits something hard, a knot of straw or something worse. You decide not to investigate. Your mother always says, "Stop complaining, at least you're not on the floor." She's right. You see your little sister curled next to your aunt, both of them trying to share body heat. The rich have it better. You know this. You've seen the manor once when you went to deliver eggs. Their beds are so high they need steps to climb in, curtains thick enough to keep out the worst drafts, wool and linen sheets dyed if they're showing off, feather mattresses. But you also heard the steward warning them not to let the tapestries near the fire. "Burned 2 houses last year," he said gravely. "So even the rich sleep with one eye open, in a way." You shift again. The ropes creak. The straw crinkles, your blanket scratches your neck. You're grateful for it anyway. Wool is precious. Someone had to shear it, spin it, weave it. You're not about to complain too loudly. You close your eyes, listening to the room. A baby whimpers. Someone whispers a prayer. The fire hisses and pops. This is sleep in the 1300s. Not private, not particularly comfortable, but shared, communal, and somehow safe enough. You let your head droop forward onto your makeshift pillow and try not to think about what might be crawling in the straw beneath you. After all, that's tomorrow's problem. You jolt a little as someone bumps your foot. The room is pitch black except for the ember glow, and you realize you're wedged up against 2 other bodies on this creaking bed. One is your cousin, the other your mother. Yeah. Privacy? Cute concept. Back in the 1300s, it's not just normal, it's expected to share your sleeping space with family, guests, servants, and sometimes complete strangers. The idea of a bed all to yourself? That's suspiciously luxurious. You shift your blanket, feeling the cold rush in before you clamp it down again. Your cousin grumbles in his sleep and rolls closer. Lovely. Now you're breathing in his garlic-laced snores. But it's not like there's an alternative. Heating is expensive. Fires devour precious wood, and the hearth can only do so much for these drafty rooms. Body heat is free. So you pile in. And not just your nuclear family. Extended family joins too. When a cousin comes to visit, they're in bed with you. When your widowed aunt loses her home, she moves in and shares your mattress. Even in wealthier homes, servants often sleep in the master's chamber, curled up near the door or even at the foot of the bed, partly for convenience, partly for security. You're all in it together. You shuffle your feet to avoid your cousin's icy heels. He grunts, half awake, then drifts back down. It's not always family, though. Inns are even worse, or better, depending on how you look at it. You remember traveling once. The inn was packed, space was money, so you paid for a share of a bed. You didn't know the man you slept next to. Didn't know if he snored, coughed, or would try to steal your boots while you slept. But you needed the warmth. He needed the warmth. And the innkeeper needed the profit. You both agreed, wordlessly, to ignore each other's existence once under the covers. You can almost smell the hay-stuffed mattress from memory. Damp, sour, the faint scent of spilled ale. But at least you weren't on the floor. Historians still argue whether bed sharing was purely an economic necessity, or whether it became a kind of social glue, a place for whispered conversations in the dark, for secrets, for forging trust. Because when you share a bed with someone, you see them at their most vulnerable, asleep, half-conscious, snoring with abandon. Your mother told you once that bedfellows could become lifelong friends, or deadly enemies if someone snored too much. You stifle a laugh at that thought. Your cousin snorts and shifts again. Of course, not everyone was happy about it. Fights broke out. Arguments over who got more blanket, who hogged the warm side, who kicked, who drooled. But what choice did you have? Firewood was scarce. Insulation was a joke. No double-glazed windows, just a wooden shutter that rattled in the wind. You glance at it now. It's closed, but you can feel the draft seeping through the gaps. You pull your blanket higher. In the corner, someone coughs. Not a polite little ahem, but a deep, rattling hack. You wince. It's the sound you all fear. Disease loves this kind of sleeping arrangement. Close quarters, shared bedding, no concept of germs yet. But you share anyway, because the alternative is worse. You think about rich folks, snuggled in their curtained beds, four posters with thick hangings to trap heat. Whole families might still share one. Parents, kids, even visitors, if it's freezing enough. Those curtains aren't just for show. They're a medieval heating strategy. You keep your candle in there carefully shielded so you don't go up like dry tinder. And it's not all bad. You remember long nights of hushed gossip. Your mother telling you old family stories while you both drifted in and out of sleep. Your father mumbling half-remembered prayers. Your sister giggling at some joke until your aunt threatened to clout you both. It's communal, intimate, unavoidable. You remember inns again. Oh, inns. You'd pay a penny to sleep on a hay pile in a corner, or more if you wanted an actual bed, which you'd share with strangers. Travelers who snored, wheezed, sometimes wet the bed if they'd had too much ale. You didn't complain. You were warm, safer than the road, and sometimes you made friends, or rivals, or heard secrets you probably shouldn't have. You turn on your side, pressing closer to your mother. She shifts in her sleep, draping an arm over you automatically. You breathe a little easier, because as much as you gripe about it, there's safety here, even if it's crowded, even if it smells like damp wool, garlic breath, and unwashed hair. The wind howls outside. The shutter rattles. Inside, you're all in it together. You sigh, letting the warmth from your family sink into your chilled bones. Sure, you'll wake up stiff, covered in someone else's drool, maybe with your cousin's foot in your ribs, but you'll wake up, and that's what matters. You're trying to doze off again, head propped up uncomfortably on your rolled cloak, when the smell hits you. Not the smoky hearth or your cousin's garlic breath this time, but something worse. Much worse. You wrinkle your nose. Yep, that's the chamber pot. It's not like you expected an ensuite bathroom. This is the 1300s. Indoor plumbing is a wild fantasy. If you need to relieve yourself in the middle of the night, you're not trudging out into the freezing dark if you can help it. You're using the pot in the corner, and you're praying you don't knock it over. You shift under your blanket, careful not to let your feet stray too far, because the floor's uneven. One wrong move, one flailing foot from your cousin, and, well, good luck cleaning that up in the dark. Your mother threatened to tan your hide once when you were little because you kicked it over. She didn't actually do it, but she made you scrub the floor with freezing water until your fingers were numb. Lesson learned. You let out a sigh, feeling the cold bite at your exposed nose. Your breath fogs in the frigid air. You wonder if you should get up and use it yourself. But the thought of leaving your warm spot is torture. Besides, you can practically hear your aunt's warning, "Don't you dare, you'll wake the whole room." Because that's the thing. Privacy is non-existent. If you're going to use the pot, everyone knows. Even if they pretend to be asleep, they're listening. You can't even fart quietly in here without someone making a joke about it in the morning. You bite back a laugh, which earns you a grumpy grunt from your cousin. The pot isn't your only problem. Hygiene in general is, let's call it, challenging. Bathing? Don't make me laugh. Heating water takes forever. You need firewood that you can't spare. And besides, doctors warn you that baths are dangerous. They open your pores to bad airs, making you vulnerable to sickness. So you make do. A quick splash to the face, a cloth rub down now and then, maybe a proper bath once or twice a year if you're really fancy. You scratch your shoulder absently. Don't think about lice. Everyone has them. And fleas. You pick them off when you can, crush them between your fingernails, flick them into the fire. It's a losing battle, but it's tradition. Your aunt claims she remembers the time a priest scolded them all for vanity because they were combing lice out of their hair in church. Better to suffer quietly, he'd said. Sure. Easy for him. You shuffle again. The ropes under your straw mattress creak. The straw crinkles in that unsettling way that makes you wonder what else is in there with you. You're grateful for your blanket. Scratchy wool that's probably never been washed properly. But it's warm. Sort of. You remember once your mother boiled it. The smell. Oh God, the smell. Wet wool is its own form of torture. But she said it was necessary after your sister got sick. That's the other thing about hygiene here. Illness is always lurking. Coughs that turn deadly. Sores that don't heal. The Black Death might not be in town this season, but everyone remembers when it was. And the fear remains. So you try to keep clean as you can. But clean is relative. You shift your feet, careful not to nudge the pot. You think about rich folks again. Nobles with their separate chambers. Their personal servants who empty their pots for them. Fancy perfumed cloths to wipe with. But even they have chamber pots. Just nicer ones. Made of pewter or ceramic instead of battered wood or tin. You heard once about a king who had a designated servant to carry his pot around. Imagine that job description. You bite back another laugh. Your cousin stirs, muttering in his sleep. You glance at the hearth. The embers glow faintly, casting just enough light to see the shapes of your family around you. Everyone's bundled up. Blankets, cloaks, even spare sacks. Anything to fight the cold. You can smell the smoke. It clings to your clothes, your hair, your skin. But it's better than the stench of unwashed bodies, you suppose. You hear the wind howl outside. The shutter rattles. You shiver despite the blanket. You remember the last time you had to use the pot at night. How you nearly dropped the candle. One gust of wind and you were in the dark, fumbling. You can still hear your aunt's shriek when you nearly knocked it over. "Hold the candle higher," she'd hissed. "Do you want to burn the place down? Or drown us all in piss?" You'd laughed so hard you almost did drop it. Your mother hadn't been amused. You smile a little at the memory. Because despite the smell, despite the lack of privacy, despite the discomfort, it's life. It's messy, loud, ridiculous. But it's yours. You pull your blanket tighter. Your cousin's foot digs into your thigh. You nudge him back gently. He doesn't wake, just grumbles. You let your eyes drift shut, ignoring the pot in the corner. Ignoring the scratch of your blanket, ignoring the lice you'll deal with tomorrow. You exhale. This is home. And somehow, that's enough. You shift slightly, listening to the room breathe. Soft snores, the hiss of the hearth, the occasional cough that sounds wet enough to worry you. It's not just the cold or the lack of comfort that makes you sleep sitting up, it's what everyone believes about health. You're surrounded by medieval medical theory, whether you want to be or not. You can practically hear the local barber surgeon's raspy voice in your head as you drift. Balance your humors or you die. Charming bedside manner. According to Galenic medicine, you're a walking stew pot of 4 humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile. Each one needs to be kept in harmony, or things go sideways fast. Too much phlegm, you'll drown in your sleep. Too much blood, fever. Bad air, your humors get corrupted and you're done for. So sleeping flat, huge risk. It encourages phlegm to pool in your chest. That's why you're propped up, head elevated, knees drawn slightly to keep things flowing correctly. You cough lightly, immediately glancing around to see if anyone noticed, because everyone's on alert for coughs. Respiratory infections are killers, and without modern medicine, they're terrifying. Doctors will bleed you to rebalance your humors. Not that it helps much. You've seen people come back from the barber surgeon pale and dizzy, a rag tied around their elbow. You shudder at the memory of your uncle's nosebleeds. They thought it was a good sign, his body purging excess blood. Historians still argue whether these treatments killed more people than they saved. But back then, it was what you had. You sniff, feeling the cold sting your nose. You're wearing nearly all your clothes, a linen shift, maybe a second if you're lucky. A wool blanket that itches enough to make you question your life choices. Your mother says too many layers will make you sweat and get sick. But too few, and you'll freeze. You listen to her breathing now, slow and even. She's propped up on her own bundle of rags, head tilted at just the right angle to satisfy the barber surgeon's demands. You think of the bad airs that everyone fears. Miasmas. Invisible poisons in the air that seep in through cracks in the walls, corrupting your humors. That's why the window is shut tight, even though it means you're all choking on hearth smoke. Better smoky than dead, apparently. You remember when someone suggested opening it during an outbreak. The scandal. You want to invite the plague in? No thanks. Your cousin coughs, turning over. The whole bed shifts. You glare at him in the dark. You adjust your head again, feeling your neck complain. There's no good angle. You're stuck between suffocation and a crick that'll last days. But you don't lie flat. Ever. That's asking for death. You think of the richer folk. They have pillows stuffed with feathers, propping them up at a more comfortable angle. Their beds are higher, safer from drafts, their curtains thick enough to hold in precious heat. But even they sit up. No one wants to tempt the reaper. You suppress a snort, thinking about the local squire bragging about his new mattress. Imported feathers, soft as clouds, he said. But you heard he still slept sitting up like the rest of you. Because death doesn't care how rich you are. Your mother shifts next to you, muttering in her sleep. You hush her softly like she did for you when you were small. You remember the first time you realized what humors meant. You were 6, watching your aunt get bled for a fever. The barber surgeon sliced her arm with a practiced flick, the blood welling up dark and sluggish. He nodded like it was good news. She lived. Barely. You close your eyes, pushing the memory away. You've seen worse. A neighbor who choked to death in the night. They said it was because he insisted on sleeping flat. Another who coughed up blood for days. They tried everything. Leeches, herbal poultices, prayers. Nothing worked. You shiver despite your layers. The hearth pops. Sparks drift up the chimney if you're lucky. Sometimes they just float into the room, threatening to catch on the straw scattered across the floor. You hope someone's watching it. Your father always says it's the fire or the air that'll kill you. Too much fire, you burn. Too much bad air, you rot from the inside. No wonder everyone's so twitchy about drafts. You pull your blanket closer, feeling the itch of the rough wool. You think about your last bath. A cold splash from a bucket, enough to knock the breath out of you. Your mother scrubbing you with a cloth that smelled worse than you did. But they believe baths are dangerous. Open your pores. Invite sickness in. So you deal. You itch. You smell, but you're alive. Your cousin snores. Your mother sighs. The wind howls against the shutter like a hungry wolf. You're grateful for the smoky air. It's warm. You adjust your head again, feeling the rolled cloak dig into your neck. Better than dying in your sleep, you tell yourself. You let your eyes drift shut, humming a half-remembered prayer. Because here in the 1300s, you do what you can and hope it's enough. You let your head loll to one side, trying to ease the cramp in your neck. The embers in the hearth are barely glowing now, cold pushing in at the edges of the room like greedy fingers. You shiver and tighten your blanket. But it isn't just the cold that makes you keep one eye open. You listen for noises in the dark. Not rats, not the wind, something else. Because in the 1300s, night is when the world feels thin, porous, when things you'd rather not see or even imagine might slip through. Superstitions cling to you like your scratchy wool shift. You remember being told as a child that demons sit on your chest while you sleep, that they'll steal your breath if you lie too flat. That's why you're propped up now, stiff and uncomfortable, but safe-ish, hoping nothing perches on you in the dark. They call it the nightmare. Not the bad dream kind, but a creature, an imp, a hag, something that pins you down, makes you unable to move or scream. You felt it before. That paralysis as you half-wake, unable to draw a full breath. Your mother whispered prayers over you afterward, smearing some pungent herbs around your bed. Did it work? You're not dead yet. You shift again, blanket rustling. You're careful not to knock over the chamber pot, which would summon a demon of its own, your mother with a switch. But even she believes in more than punishment. There's a charm nailed above the door, a crude wooden cross, a pouch of dried herbs dangling from the beams. Wormwood, maybe. Or St. John's wort. Protection against spirits. You remember watching her hang it, muttering a prayer under her breath. She said it keeps the restless dead away. Historians still argue whether these superstitions were church-approved or stubborn pagan holdovers. The priests scolded people for them even as they burned candles for the saints themselves. You don't care about the debate. You're not taking chances. You adjust the rolled cloak behind your head. It's lumpy but better than nothing. You think of the stories, the black dog that haunts crossroads, the lady in white who weeps for her lost children, the night hag who rides you until you can't breathe. You heard about old Oswin who swore he saw his dead wife at the foot of his bed, smiling, until she started screaming. He didn't sleep for weeks after. You rub your arms, feeling the cold sweat on your skin. Someone coughs in the dark. You jump a little. Your cousin mumbles something in his sleep, words you can't quite make out. You hope it's not a curse. Because curses are real too. You remember that farmer who got into a fight with his neighbor. Next thing you know, his cow died, his son broke his leg, and his wife had nightmares every night until she wasted away. Coincidence? Sure. But no one says that out loud. You tug your blanket higher, covering your mouth. You mutter a prayer under your breath. Your mother always told you never to speak certain names at night. Don't invite attention. Don't tempt them. So you stay quiet. You watch the last glow of the hearth fade. Shadows deepen. The room grows colder. You hear the wind howling outside. The shutter rattles like bones. You think about the graveyard at the edge of town. How the priest warns everyone to stay away at night. Not because of thieves, but because the dead don't always stay put. You scoff, but not too loudly. Better safe than sorry. You shift again, feeling the straw mattress poke you in new and creative ways. You remember your aunt saying that dreams can be messages, warnings, that you should pay attention. She kept a dream book. Well, a scrap of parchment with smudged ink full of symbols. A snake means betrayal. A broken cup means death. Falling means you'll lose something. You asked her once what drowning meant. She didn't answer, just crossed herself. You close your eyes, hoping tonight's dreams will be kinder. You breathe slowly, in, out, listening to the room. Listening for anything that doesn't sound like family. You tell yourself there's nothing there, that the scratching at the door is just the wind, that the soft moan wasn't real, that the dark is just dark. You try to believe it, you really do. Your eyes flutter half open as the cold seeps in deeper. You shift, careful not to collapse fully flat, always keeping that cautious half-sitting posture. Your breath clouds in the dark air, mixing with the sighs and snores of your bundled family. You're not the only one awake. Across the room, you see a tiny flicker of light, your father stirring the embers back to life. A dull glow spreads out, illuminating faces like pale moons. He's mumbling something under his breath, and it takes you a moment to realize it's a prayer. Because tonight isn't just another cold vigil, it's also the church's watch. You're not a monk, obviously. You don't live in a cold cloister, chanting the divine office 7 times a day and twice at night. But the church's schedule seeps into every corner of your life, even sleep. The bells toll at weird hours in town, matins in the middle of the night, lauds at dawn. Those prayers shape everything, even how you rest. You think about the village priest with his raspy voice, warning that idleness invites sin. That waking in the night is a gift, a chance to speak with God. Historians still argue whether the church created segmented sleep or just blessed it after the fact. Either way, it's routine now. You see your mother move next to you, lifting her head and crossing herself. She doesn't speak, just mouths silent words. You follow suit. Not because you're holy, but because it feels wrong not to. Even the kids know to hush if someone's praying. You hear a whispered hymn, cracked and tired, from the far side of the room. Your uncle, probably. His voice is thin, the tune half forgotten. But it's comforting, in its own way. You exhale slowly, listening to the cadence. And you remember last year's vigil for St. Michael's Day, when everyone stayed up to light candles and pray for protection from devils and misfortune. The priest insisted it worked. The plague didn't return that year. Coincidence? Maybe. You're not taking chances. You shift in your bedding, your rolled cloak digging into your back. You remember visiting the nearby monastery as a child. Cold stone walls, bare cells with thin straw pallets. The monks themselves half-starved and shivering, but they'd rise like ghosts in the dead of night to chant matins. Their voices echoed off the vaulted ceilings, low, haunting, beautiful, in a way that made the hairs on your neck stand up. You'd asked your father why they did it. To show they're better than us, he'd grumbled. Your mother had cuffed him lightly and said, to show devotion. You didn't understand then. You're starting to now. Because here you are, awake in the night, whispering a prayer you're not even sure you believe in. Just in case. The wind wails outside. The shutter shudders on its rusted hinges. You flinch, then cross yourself again. Your father's prayer fades. He leans back against the wall, eyes closing. Not asleep. Resting. That's the thing about these waking hours. They're not busy, exactly. But they're not idle either. You can mend a sock by the fire, stir the embers, check on the animals if you're brave enough to face the cold. Or you can pray. Sometimes it feels like everyone's doing it. A low murmur in the night, like the sea pulling at the shore. You glance at your cousin, who's snoring gently. He's the only one who can sleep through anything. You envy him, but you can't relax fully. Not with that voice in your head saying, wake, watch, pray. You listen for the priest's bells in the distance. Sometimes you hear them, carried on the wind. It's rare, but when it happens, it feels like the world itself is breathing with you. You remember the time they tolled for old Hilda's death. Everyone in the room had frozen, listening. A reminder that one day the bell would toll for you. That's why you pray, not because you're holy, but because you're afraid. You shift again, careful of the pot in the corner. The fire pops, sending a few sparks onto the stone hearth. Your father grunts and leans forward, brushing them back with a stick. No one wants to burn alive tonight. You watch the glow fade back to embers, and in that dim light, the whole room feels like a chapel. A cold, crowded, smoky chapel. You mutter your own prayer, not out loud, not fancy, just words in your head. Keep them safe. Keep me warm. Don't let anything in. You hear someone on the other side of the room whispering in Latin. You don't understand all the words, but you recognize them. Pater Noster. Ave Maria. You know enough to mumble along. You let your head rest back, cloak scratching your neck. You close your eyes, praying you'll wake up, praying the wind doesn't blow open the shutter, praying the fire doesn't die, praying for one more night. Because in the 1300s, that's what sleep is. A bargain. A hope, a whispered prayer in the dark. You blink groggily at the dull glow of the hearth, your eyelids heavy but refusing to close completely. You're awake, again, because you're on fire patrol. Well, not officially. But you know the rule. Never sleep too deep. Never trust the hearth to behave. The embers spit and pop, sending tiny orange sparks curling into the dark. Your father is snoring. Your mother's head lolls onto your shoulder. Your cousin is making that disgusting wet gargle in his sleep. But you're the one watching the fire. Because this is the 1300s. And fire safety is a joke. You lean forward, breath puffing in cold white clouds, and tap the log with the fire iron. It crumbles, sending a rush of sparks toward the corner. Your heart jumps into your throat. You slap at it with the iron, snuffing the glow before it can spread to the loose straw scattered everywhere. You exhale, long and shaky. Fires are your best friend and worst nightmare. They're the only heat you have in a stone room that bleeds warmth like a slit throat. But they'll kill you without blinking. You've heard stories. Everyone has. Whole villages gone up in one night. A candle left too close to a bed curtain. An ember rolling onto straw. You remember old Tom, whose cottage burned. No one found him until he was unrecognizable. They buried what they could in a shallow grave behind the church. Your mother said it was God's judgment for drinking too much. You think it was just bad luck. You nudge the log again, making sure it's settled safely in the ashes. Historians still argue whether medieval people were truly careless or just fighting an impossible battle with technology. You think they tried. You know you're trying. You glance around the room. A single candle burns in a battered holder by the door. Its flame gutters in the draft. You watch it carefully, because if it falls over, goodbye, everything. You remember once nearly knocking it down when you got up to use the chamber pot. The look your father gave you could have cracked stone. Your mother slapped your shoulder so hard you didn't sleep the rest of the night. Lesson learned. So you sit up, watching. The candle flickers, casting long, monstrous shadows on the walls. Your cousin's silhouette looks like a sleeping giant, his blanket lumped over his head. You stifle a laugh, because you have to. Laugh or go mad. You adjust your blanket, pulling it tighter. The wool scratches your chin, but you don't care. You look at the candle again. Tallow, cheap, greasy. It stinks when it burns, but that's what you have. If you're rich, beeswax, clean, slow burning, less smoke. It's like magic. You remember seeing one once in the manor, thick and yellow, carved with flowers. The lady of the house lit it like it was nothing, letting it burn for hours. You tried not to stare too hard, because you go home to your stub of tallow, precious inches you try to save for emergencies. Your mother snuffs it with damp fingers when she thinks you're asleep. Wasteful, she mutters, and she's right. You watch the candle by the door. You hope it lasts the night. Because you hate the dark. Not just for the superstitions, but because you know how easy it is to get lost in it. To trip over someone's leg. To kick the pot over. To walk right into the hearth and set yourself alight. Or worse, to wake up to smoke. You cough lightly at the thought. The smoke in the room is thick enough already. Your eyes sting. You know you should sleep. You have to get up at dawn. Work in the fields, haul water, mend clothes. But who will watch the fire? You glance at your father. He's snoring like a church bell in a thunderstorm. Your mother's mouth is open slightly, breath rasping. Your cousin? Lost to the world. So you watch, because someone has to. You remember the local reeve bragging about his new fire screen. Ironwork from the blacksmith. He says it saved his house twice already. Your family doesn't have one. You have a stick to prod the logs. And your eyes. You sigh, long and low. The wind outside howls, rattling the shutter like a warning. You think about the houses down the lane, half collapsed from last winter's storm. One family burned alive after trying to stay warm with a pile of damp, smoky green wood that spat embers like a demon. You swallow. The candle flickers lower. You consider snuffing it. But you can't. Not yet. Because you're afraid of the dark. And because you know you're the only thing standing between your family and an inferno. You shift your blanket, grip the fire iron tighter, and keep watching. Because this is sleep in the 1300s. A fight, a bargain with the flames, and you're not ready to lose. You shift in your creaking bed, the straw mattress crackling under you like dry leaves. Your neck aches from keeping your head propped up. You can't lie flat. Not if you want to avoid the Reaper's invitation. So you sit, half reclined, knees drawn up, and try to get comfortable. But the cold is creeping in from every crack in the wall, needling your skin. You pull your blanket tighter. But let's be honest, it's not much of a blanket. It's wool, sure, but coarse, scratchy, and patched in places where the old holes show the ghost of colder nights. The smell is, well, let's call it well lived in. A sour mix of old sweat, smoke, and that peculiar earthy scent of wet sheep. Still, you're grateful for it. Not everyone has even this much. You look around the room at the shapes of your family, bundled under whatever they can find. Your father's wearing his cloak in bed, the one he uses in the fields during the day. Your mother has layered 2 shifts over herself, with a fraying scarf wrapped around her head like a nun who's given up on fashion. Your cousin is even worse off. He's in a patched tunic, legs bare, except for some old wool socks that don't match. You can hear his teeth clicking together when he shivers. And you're wearing everything you own. Your shift, of course. The standard underlayer, plain linen if you're lucky, scratchy hemp if you're not. Over that, another shift for warmth. Your second best tunic, the one with only 2 holes. And socks that you're pretty sure belonged to your uncle at some point, because they don't fit either foot quite right. The rich folk have it better, naturally. You once glimpsed the squire's nightgown, embroidered linen so fine it made your fingers itch just to touch it. Stitched with little vines and leaves, probably by a servant who hated every second of it. But it's not just about looking good. That fancy nightgown is loose enough to let the skin breathe, but layered enough to trap heat. And it's clean, or at least cleaner than anything you're wearing. They also have proper bed linens, sheets, blankets dyed in expensive colors that say, I don't worry about food in winter. And they have multiple layers of bedding, feather ticks, heavy quilts, and curtains drawn tight around the bed to trap every last gasp of warmth. You? You have your family's collective body heat and the hope the fire doesn't die completely. Historians still argue whether medieval people wore all their clothes to bed because they had so few, or because laundry was so impossible. You think it's both. Your mother hates laundry days. It means hauling buckets of water from the well, heating them over a stingy fire, then scrubbing until her knuckles crack and bleed. Then there's the drying. If it's wet outside, good luck. Clothes freeze stiff on the line, so you don't wash them often. You don't wash you often. Bathing is considered risky, opens the pores, invites bad airs. Your mother does what she can. A wipe with a damp cloth, now and then. A change of shift once a week if you're lucky. And when the plague comes, you sew herbs into your clothes. You remember your aunt stuffing lavender and rosemary into her sleeves, claiming it would ward off illness. The smell was so strong it made your eyes water. She still got sick, but you still do it. Because what if it works next time? You scratch your shoulder absently. Don't think about lice. Everyone has them. You can hear your mother in your head. Stop scratching. You'll wake them. Because yes, the lice are apparently intelligent enough to respond to threats. You laugh quietly at the thought. Your cousin stirs and groans. You hush him gently. You pull your blanket tighter around your shoulders. The cold seeps in anyway. You try to remember the last time you had a new piece of clothing. Your tunic was your father's. Before that, your uncle's. Before that, who knows? You've outgrown it twice, but you just let the seams out. The shift? Your mother sewed it from a sheet that was too ragged for the bed. Your socks? Don't ask. But you're warm. Warmish. That's enough. You glance at the fire. The embers glow weakly. You pray they hold until morning, because if they go out, you'll wake up with frost on your blanket. You remember last winter. You woke up with your hair frozen to the pillow. Your mother poured warm water over it to free you. She was crying while she did it, but she pretended she wasn't. You pull your blanket tighter, pressing your knees to your chest. The wool scratches. It's uncomfortable. It's itchy. It's home. You let your head fall back against your rolled-up cloak. Your mother snores softly next to you. Your cousin mumbles something unintelligible. You close your eyes. You try to sleep. Not flat, of course. Never flat. Because even in your sleep, you know you're fighting for another dawn. Your head dips forward and jerks back again, sleep dragging at you like an insistent child. You're tired, bone deep, soul deep tired. But you force yourself to blink your eyes open. Because here in the 1300s, dreams aren't just dreams. They're messages, omens, warnings. Your mother believes it, down to her cracked, work-roughened fingers. She once told you that God whispers to the faithful in sleep, but the devil does too. You never know who you're listening to. So you pay attention. Your dreams tonight have been a mess of flickering images. A black dog sitting on your chest. Your father lighting a candle that drips blood instead of wax. Your cousin laughing with too many teeth. You shiver even though you're wrapped in every layer you own. You shift on the sagging ropes of the bed. The straw crackles beneath you, and you remember the dream book your aunt in a battered wooden chest. She treated it like scripture. Dreaming of teeth falling out, a death in the family. Dreaming of water, trouble. Dreaming of fire, anger coming your way. She used to squint at you in the morning and demand every detail of your sleep. Tell me, she'd insist, fingers tight on your wrist. You remember the weight of those eyes, searching for doom in your scrambled night thoughts. You try to forget, but you still listen, because even now, half awake, you're replaying that black dog on your chest. Was it the devil, or just your mind trying to explain the pressure of your cousin rolling into you in the dark? Historians still argue whether these dream interpretations were folk nonsense or a genuine psychological tool. You're pretty sure it's both, because there's comfort in pretending the nightmare means something you can prepare for. You shift again, your blanket scratching your chin. Your mother mutters in her sleep, face creased even in rest. You wonder what she's dreaming. Maybe she's seeing your father, young and strong, before the cough hollowed him out. Maybe she's reliving that one warm summer that seems like another life now. You hope so. Because you know what dreams can be. You've seen people wake up screaming, clawing at their own faces. You've heard the old stories, the hag who sits on your chest, the succubus who drains you dry. Your father told you once about a man in town who dreamed of being smothered every night until he couldn't sleep at all. He wasted away like a candle burned at both ends. You didn't sleep for days after hearing that. You pull your blanket tighter, knees to your chest. You try not to think about it, but you do, because there's no escaping your dreams here. No closing a door, no light switch to banish the dark. Just you, your thoughts, and whatever decides to visit. You remember last harvest when your sister dreamed of a field full of black birds. She cried telling you about their eyes. Your mother didn't laugh. She slaughtered a chicken the next day and smeared its blood on the door lintel. Just in case. Did it work? The harvest wasn't great, but you survived. You sniff, rubbing your nose with the back of your hand. The cold makes your eyes water. You wish you could say you don't believe, that you're too smart for this. But you remember your own dreams too well. The good ones. The time you dreamed of clear water, and the very next week you found the lost bucket in the stream, saving a day's walk to the well. The time you dreamed of your grandmother telling you to check the roof, and you found the loose tile before the storm hit. Coincidence? You don't know. You don't want to know. You turn your head slightly, watching the coals glow in the hearth. They look like eyes. You blink, telling yourself you're awake now, safe-ish, surrounded by your family. Even if your cousin snores like a dying pig, you let your head fall back onto your bundled cloak. The room smells of smoke and sweat. You can hear someone muttering a prayer. Maybe they're asking for protection from the nightmares. You do too, quietly, just in case someone's listening. Because here, sleep isn't rest. It's a negotiation, a promise to pay attention. You close your eyes again, not too tight, ready to wake up if something brushes your arm, ready to chase away any shape that doesn't belong. You whisper the words your aunt taught you. Keep them away. Keep me safe. Let me see what I need to see. You sigh and drift. You blink, heavy-lidded, at the vague shapes of the room around you. The hearth's glow is almost gone now, replaced by deep, restless darkness. You can hear the wind battering the shutter, a constant low moan like the house itself is complaining about the cold. You squirm in your nest of blankets and cloaks, trying not to disturb your mother's soft snoring beside you. But it's impossible to get truly comfortable on a sagging rope bed stuffed with straw that's been reused too many times. You think about the people in town. It's not any better there. They don't even have the thin courtesy of distance from the noise. You remember sleeping once in your cousin's place in town. Cramped. 2 rooms, maybe. And the walls were so thin you could hear the neighbor next door arguing about a lost chicken at midnight. The street noise never stopped. Drunks singing off-key outside the alehouse. A donkey braying. Someone banging on a door, demanding to be let in. And then there was the bell. The city bell, tolling out the hour or warning of a fire or announcing someone's death. You'd jerk awake every time. And then you'd try to settle back in on the creaky plank bed, sharing it with 3 other people. No privacy, everyone's breath mingling in the cold air. You'd hear the mice in the walls, and you'd listen for thieves. Because in the city, you lock your doors, if you have them. If you don't, you just pray no one decides you're worth the trouble. You tug your blanket tighter now, grateful in a grim way for the relative quiet of the countryside. But even here, it's not silent. You hear the wind scream through the gaps in the shutters. The rafters creak with the weight of snow. Somewhere in the distance, an animal calls out. Maybe a fox. Maybe something worse. Your cousin's foot nudges yours, and you shove it away. He grunts but doesn't wake. You try not to laugh, because sleep here is communal, no matter where you are, city or country, rich or poor. You think about the manor once. You were there on an errand with your father. It was grand. Tapestries on the walls to keep out drafts, thick rugs on the floors. But even there, the servants slept in the same room as their masters. Curtains drawn around the noble bed, sure, but the flicker of candlelight would reveal the shapes of people tucked in at the foot, on pallets by the door. ready to serve, ready to wake. You remember overhearing two maids whispering about the ladies snoring. They laughed so hard they had to hide their faces in their blankets to keep from being scolded. So much for privacy. Your father always said only the dead sleep alone. You used to laugh. You don't now. Because even here in your drafty old house, the idea of being alone in the dark is worse than the stink of shared breath and the weight of someone else's cold feet. You hear your mother shift. She mumbles something that might be your name. You hum back a soft answer. She quiets. You think about the difference between urban and rural sleep. Your father hates the city. He says it's full of disease and sin. You're not so sure. You remember seeing people pouring out of the alehouse, singing and laughing even in the freezing cold. You remember warm bread from the bakers, the smell enough to make your stomach cramp with hunger. But you also remember the dark alleys, the cut purses, the beggars who'd sleep in doorways, pressing close for warmth like animals in a pen. You wonder if they sleep sitting up too. Probably, because no matter where you go, that fear of lying flat follows you. You sniff, rubbing your nose with the back of your hand. The cold burns your nostrils. You listen to the sounds of the house, your father's snoring, your mother's slow breathing, your cousin's occasional wheezing cough, and the wind, always the wind. You wonder if it's better in some places. Maybe in the south, where it's warmer. You've heard of people sleeping outside in courtyards. Can you imagine? You'd freeze solid if you tried that here. You smile a little, eyes half shut. You remember someone saying that in the cities, people hang their laundry to dry in the same room they sleep in. You thought that was weird, until you realized it kept the damp from freezing their shirts into stiff boards outside. Smart. You sigh, shifting. Your hip digs into a particularly cruel knot of straw. You curse it under your breath, then glance at your mother to make sure she didn't hear. She'd scold you for your language. Even now. Especially now. You think about the night watchmen in town. Your father used to laugh about them. They sleep more than we do, he'd say. But you remember their cloaks, heavy and dark, the lanterns swaying as they trudged down the streets, calling the hour in cracked voices. Keeping order, kind of. You wonder who's keeping watch here. No one but you. You yawn, jaw cracking. Your eyes drift shut, but you stay propped up, always. Because even in the deepest dark, with the wind howling like wolves outside and your family huddled close enough to feel their hearts beat, you know the rules. Don't lie down flat, don't trust the quiet, don't sleep too deep. You exhale slowly, your breath fades into the dark, you close your eyes and try, just try, to rest. Your eyes flutter open when the wind rattles the shutter hard enough to make the entire wall shudder. You jolt, heartbeat thrumming in your ears, half convinced the door's blown open and the night is pouring in like a tide of black water. But no, just the wind. You let out a slow, shaky breath and try to settle back. But you don't lie down flat. You never lie flat. You stay propped, knees pulled up, arms around them, blanket wrapped tight. You're used to this. But there was a time you weren't. You remember traveling. It wasn't far. Just 2 days to the next market town with your father to sell a cart of salted fish. But it felt like crossing the world. And you remember the inn. You can still smell it if you think too hard. Stale ale, wet dog, smoke so thick it felt like breathing old wool. The innkeeper gave you a space on an actual bed, sort of. A lumpy sack of straw on a wooden frame with ropes that sagged so badly you felt like you were in a hammock, strung by drunks. And you didn't even get it to yourself. You shared with your father and a drover you didn't know from Adam. A big man with bristly hair and a snore so powerful you worried the thatch might fall in. You'd pressed yourself against the edge of the bed, trying not to breathe, or move, or exist. You remember lying there, eyes wide, listening to the noises of the room. Because it wasn't just your bed, it wasn't even just your room. The entire common room was lined with bodies. Travelers from everywhere, crammed onto benches, the floor, mats of hay. You heard crying, laughing, arguing, a baby wailing until its exhausted mother shushed it with a breast, the clank of a mug hitting a table as the last holdout drinkers were finally forced to bed, someone retching into a bucket. You shudder even now at the memory. Privacy? Huh. The innkeeper didn't care who shared with who. You paid for a warm space, not solitude, and warmth was the point. The fire burned hot and greedy in the hearth, so big it made the walls glow orange. But there were so many bodies that the heat was trapped, thick, oppressive. You remember sweating in your shift even though outside the frost painted the windows. Your father's voice in your ear, "Be grateful, better hot than cold." You weren't sure you agreed. And you sure didn't sleep well. Because you couldn't stop listening. Someone snored like a pig. Someone mumbled in a language you didn't know. Someone coughed so hard you were certain they'd spit a lung onto the floor, and there were the sounds you pretended you didn't hear. A couple in the corner, trying to be quiet about it. Your father's harsh whisper, "Don't look." You hadn't wanted to. You shift now in your own bed, remembering how the drover's arm had flopped across your chest in the middle of the night. You'd squeaked like a mouse. Your father had just grunted. "Sleep, he won't bite." The drover hadn't even woken. You don't think you slept at all, and you weren't the only one. Because in sleep isn't real sleep. It's survival. A warm space, a roof over your head, a fire that might burn the place down if you weren't careful. You remember that night vividly, because you were the one who saw the spark. Someone knocked over a candle. It fell onto the rushes by the door. For one breathless moment, the entire room held still, watching that tiny orange glow spread into a tongue of flame. You'd been the one to yell. Your father had kicked over a bucket of dirty water onto it. The smell was worse than the fish you sold, but the fire was out. The innkeeper cursed everyone back to bed. And you'd sat there shivering, watching the ember glow fade in the hearth, unable to close your eyes in case it happened again. Because even at an inn, you never really sleep. You rest, you doze, you listen, you hope. You pull your blanket closer now, safer at home but still remembering. Your mother's told you horror stories of worse inns, ones where you wake up without your boots, or your purse, or your teeth if you argued about the bill. She said once she knew a girl who went to work in an inn and never came home. You don't ask what happened, because you don't want to know. You shift again on your sagging ropes. Your cousin's feet are pressed to your side, cold as a corpse. You push him off. He mutters but doesn't wake. You pull the blanket tighter and think about those nights on the road. The fear, the noise, the knowledge that you were surrounded by strangers who might help you if the place burned down or rob you blind if they got the chance. Travel isn't romantic here. It's necessary, dangerous, expensive, and you never ever sleep deeply. Because you can't. Because you know better. You close your eyes now in your own home. Your family all around you, the wind howling outside, and you thank whatever saint might be listening that at least tonight you know every voice in this room, even the snoring, even the curses in sleep. They're yours, and that's worth something. You breathe out slowly, letting the memory of the inn fade, trying to let sleep creep in, careful, cautious. Not too deep, not flat, but enough. Enough to last until dawn. You squint at the dark ceiling beams, tracing their rough lines with your tired eyes. Sleep won't come easy, and you know it. Because even if you're home now, you remember what it's like out there. The curfew bell still echoes in your ears, even though you haven't heard it in days. You remember that time in the market town when you were stuck past sundown. The bell rang with that deep, disapproving clang, announcing to every soul that honest folk should already be aid. Your father's hand gripped your shoulder so tight it hurt. We go. Now. Because you don't want to be caught out after curfew. Not in the town. Not with the watchmen making their rounds, lanterns swinging, cudgels at the ready. They're supposed to keep order. But everyone knows they nap in alleys, drunk on the ale they bought with your bribes. If you get caught, it's a fine, if you're lucky. A beating, if you're not. You'd heard about that boy from 2 villages over. Caught on the street past curfew. Said he was fetching medicine for his mother. Didn't matter. He came home with a limp that never healed right. You shudder even now thinking about it. Your father wouldn't risk it. He dragged you through the streets, boots slapping on wet cobbles, shadows like monsters looming between the cramped houses. You'd nearly slipped on the slime by the tanner's door. He yanked you up without slowing. You'd passed a watchman, lantern held high, the flame flickering in the wind. His eyes were bloodshot. He watched you both like a hungry dog. But you'd made it to the inn. Paid too much for half a bed. Didn't sleep. Just listened to the sound of the bell dying away, leaving you with your pounding heart. Now, in the silence of your own bed, you can almost hear it. That slow, doom-filled toll, warning you to stay in your place. You rub your arms, trying to chase away the chill that has nothing to do with the cold. Because out there, the night belongs to things you don't want to see. Not just spirits and demons, though your mother would say that too. But real things. Thieves. Desperate men with knives. Women who'll cut your purse and smile while doing it. You remember your father telling you, no honest man's out after the bell. You'd asked why. He'd looked at you, eyes hard, because honest men know better. You understand now. Even in the village, there's a kind of curfew. Not official, but everyone knows. When the sun's gone, you stay in. You bar the door. You keep the shutter closed, even though it doesn't block the wind completely, because you don't want to see who's walking past, or what. You remember last winter, a traveler banging on the door after dark, begging for shelter. Your father didn't open it. He sat by the hearth, staring into the flames. Your mother cried, but she didn't move either. You sat there listening to the pounding, the desperate voice. Until it stopped. You didn't ask what happened to him. You didn't want to know, because you know what your father would have said. Open the door for one, you open it for all. And not everyone is just cold. Some want more than your hearth. Some want everything. You shift now, the ropes of the bed groaning under you. Your cousin kicks you in his sleep. You don't even bother shoving back. You're too busy listening, because even now you can hear things. The wind, the trees creaking. Maybe a fox crying out in the distance, or maybe something else. Your mother says the night hides sinners and saints alike. You're not sure which is worse. You swallow hard. Because you also remember the watchmen themselves, their swagger, their easy violence. They'll beat a thief bloody in the square for everyone to see, and then take a bribe from the next one. Your father called it justice. Your mother just shook her head. You asked once why they bothered with a curfew if no one enforced it fairly. Your father slapped you. Not hard, just enough to let you know you'd gone too far. Because they have to try, he'd muttered. You wonder if he believed it. You shift, pulling your blanket tighter. Your breath fogs in the cold. You try to focus on the hearth's glow. Fading but not gone. It's a promise that you're safe. For now. Because inside these walls, even if they're drafty and thin, you're home. Outside, no promises. Your cousin mumbles in his sleep. Your mother's breathing evens out. Your father lets out a snore that rattles the beams. You smile despite yourself. Because you know those sounds. They're yours, and they're safe. You let your head droop forward again, eyelids heavy. You whisper a quiet prayer. Not for dreams, not for warmth, just to make it to dawn. Because out there in the dark, past the curfew bell's memory, is a world that doesn't care if you wake up at all. And in here you still have a chance. You close your eyes, listening, hoping, breathing, alive. You're half asleep, head bobbing unsteadily, when another gust of wind rattles the shutter hard enough to creak the hinges. You blink, dragging yourself back to the freezing reality of the room, blanket clenched tight around your shoulders. But tonight, you're not just thinking about this room. You're remembering other places, other nights, because not everyone sleeps exactly like you do. Your mother says they do in the next village, but you've heard stories from travelers. You once sat near the hearth while a tinker from the south warmed his hands and told your father about how folks in the Mediterranean sleep. He said they have courtyards, open to the night. Imagine that. Sleeping under the stars on purpose. You'd snorted. They must freeze. He'd laughed, showing all three of his good teeth. Not there, lad. It's warm even in winter. You'd tried to picture it. A tiled roof that didn't leak. Walls that stayed warm after the sun set. Your father had muttered that it was unnatural. What if someone climbs the wall? What about the wind? The tinker had shrugged. No wind. No thieves brave enough. You'd listened, hungry for every word, because it sounded like magic, sleeping outside without freezing to death. You shift now in your rough straw bed, pulling your cloak tighter. The draft slides down your neck like icy fingers. You can hear your cousin snoring beside you, your mother's breath rasping softly. You think about how you're all crammed in here. No courtyards, no cool breezes, just one smoky room that always feels too small. But you've heard of other differences too. The tinker claimed people in Italy take naps in the afternoon. Siesta, he called it, rolling the word on his tongue like it tasted good. Your father had scoffed. Lazy. But you'd wondered, what would it be like to rest when the sun was hottest instead of breaking your back in the fields? You never asked, because you knew the answer. Work doesn't wait. You scratch at your neck absently. Don't think about the lice. The tinker also told you that in the far north, people sleep in giant beds with the whole family, even grown children. Not just 2 or 3 to a bed. 6, 7, grandparents, parents, kids, all pressed together under furs so thick they could stand up on their own. Your father had grunted. Sounds crowded. Your mother had said, sounds warm. You'd agreed silently. You remember being so cold one winter that you cried. Your mother had gathered you and your cousin and wrapped you both in her cloak, her arms shaking. No firewood left, the embers barely glowing. You'd slept that night cheek to cheek with your cousin, hating every second of his cold nose but too afraid to let go. You'd have taken furs. You'd have taken the whole family in one giant bed if it meant not shivering until your teeth cracked. Historians still argue whether these regional differences were about climate or culture. You think it's both. You can't doze in the courtyard when the wind is trying to skin you alive. You can't afford a giant family bed if you can't even afford enough straw for one mattress. You cough lightly, the smoke from the hearth scratching your throat. You imagine somewhere far south, someone is sleeping with their door open to let the warm breeze in. No coughing, no frost. You wonder if they lie flat, if they even think about humors and bad airs and demons on their chest. You doubt it. But then you remember that the tinker said even there, people believe in spirits. Evil eye, he'd said solemnly, spitting over his shoulder. Your father had rolled his eyes. Your mother had made the sign of the cross. Because it's always something, isn't it? No matter where you go, people are afraid of the dark. You pull your blanket higher, squashing yourself against your cousin's side. He doesn't even stir. You glare at him in the gloom, annoyed by his peace, but grateful for his warmth. Because here, you don't have a choice. You share beds, you share breath, you share fear. You think about the tinker saying in the south, they leave windows open all night. You snorted then. You want to laugh now. You can barely keep the shutter closed with a nail and a prayer. The wind finds every crack. You're lucky it hasn't taken the roof. Your father swears every spring he'll fix it. Every autumn it's still leaking. You close your eyes, imagining a place with no cold drafts. No need to sleep sitting up so you don't drown in your own phlegm. A place where a breeze is welcome instead of a threat. You sigh, but you know you'll never see it. You'll sleep here, propped up, blanket scratchy and thin. Your cousin's foot digging into your thigh. Your mother's snores rattling like a broken bellows. The wind howling like a wolf that wants in. And you'll be grateful for it. Because it's yours. Because it's home. Because no matter how different the customs are in far-off lands, no matter how many ways people try to trick sleep into sparing them for another day, it all comes down to the same thing. Survival. One night at a time. You shift again, sighing as the ropes creak and the straw shifts under you. You close your eyes, willing the wind to hush, trying to forget the tinker's stories, trying to forget the cold, trying to sleep propped up, alive. You roll your head to one side, blinking into the dark. Your neck aches from staying propped up. Your lower back throbs in protest against the twisted ropes beneath the straw tick. But you stay angled. Always. Even half asleep, you remember not to flatten out. Because that's how you were taught. But times are changing. Even now, you can sense the old ways fraying around the edges. You remember your father muttering once that only fools slept flat. But you also remember seeing the Reeves' son stretched out on his fancy feather bed like he hadn't a care in the world. No propped head, no knees drawn up like a corpse bracing for rigor. Just arms flung wide, mouth open, snoring like he owned the very concept of sleep. Your father had scowled, but hadn't said a word. Because people are starting to talk. About how the physicians are changing their minds. About how sleeping flat might not actually kill you. That the humors don't pool in your chest. That the air might not be bad enough to choke you if you dared to lie back. Historians still argue whether the decline of upright sleeping was driven by new medical theories or just better conditions. You think it's both. You heard the priest once grumble about those new ideas from the universities, carried back by men with ink-stained fingers who thought they knew better than God. But even he sleeps flatter than you'd expect for a man who preaches humility. You suspect it's the fire, because that's changed too. The hearth in your home is pathetic, a sooty, stubborn pit that smokes more than it warms. But you've seen newer houses in town, ones with chimneys designed better. They don't fill the room with lung-burning haze. They can bank coals to last longer, safer. They don't need someone awake all night poking them back to life. You shift now, trying not to wake your cousin. Your mother mumbles something, pulling her own blanket tighter. You think about how you'd kill for a better hearth. A proper flue. No more black snot in the morning. No more praying you don't die in your sleep from smoke. The Reeve has one. Your father says he's showing off. But you remember feeling the warm, clean air in that room. And you know it's better. You close your eyes and imagine it. No need to huddle half upright to stay alive. Just sprawl. Let the bones rest. Let the breath flow. You heard too about new mattresses. Feathers stuffed so deep they feel like sleeping on a cloud. Springs, some say, though you can't imagine what that even means. You can't help a bitter laugh in the dark. Your own mattress is a flattened sack of straw that might as well be a pile of lumpy rocks. The ropes beneath it are slack enough you'd roll into the floor if you weren't careful. They need tightening. Again. Sleep tight, they say. But it's hard to sleep at all. You sigh, careful not to be too loud. Your father insists things are fine the way they are, that the old ways worked for his father and his father before him. But you remember the coughs that killed half the village last winter. The old man who choked in his sleep, and you wonder if lying back might have saved them, or if it would have killed them faster. You don't know. You don't pretend to, but you can see it happening. Even here. Your mother complains less when she leans back a little more each year. Your cousin has started lying nearly flat, only pulling the blanket high over his mouth like it'll guard his lungs. Your father grumbles, but you've seen him slip lower after too much ale. And you're tired. Tired of fighting gravity all night. Tired of waking up with your back screaming. Tired of acting like you're sleeping in a chair when you have a bed, however bad it is. You shift now, experimentally letting yourself slide a little lower. Your neck protests, stiff from generations of fear. You swallow. You listen to your mother's breathing. Steady, calm. You dare to lie back another inch. It feels wrong, exposed, like you're inviting something to sit on your chest and steal your breath. But nothing happens. Just the cold creeping in around your ankles. You pull the blanket tighter. Your cousin snorts in his sleep and kicks you. You don't even bother to push him away. You're too busy testing this small rebellion, lying back, feeling the ache ease a little in your lower back. You can hear your father's voice in your head, calling you a fool, but he's asleep, sitting up, half fallen over, drooling into his collar, and you wonder if even he wants to lie down. If he's just afraid. You close your eyes, imagining a room with a clean hearth, a real mattress, a bed wide enough for your whole family to stretch without shoving elbows in ribs. No chamber pot smell, no smoke, just warmth. You know you'll never have it. Not really, but you can imagine it. And for now, that's enough. You let your head fall back just a little further. Your breath fogs in the cold air. You don't choke, you don't die, you just lie there, shivering, alive. And for the first time in your life, you think maybe your children won't have to sit up like sentries in the dark. Maybe they'll get to sleep like kings, flat, safe, free. You breathe slowly, the chill in the room biting at your nose as you finally let your head rest back on the rolled cloak. Just for a moment, just to test it. And nothing happens. No demon leaps onto your chest. No coughing fit seizes you. You're lying almost flat. Your mother would have scolded you if she saw it. Your father would have called you a fool. But you're too tired to care. You pull the scratchy blanket tighter around your shoulders. It's not perfect. The draft still snakes in around the shutter. The rope bed sags enough, you feel like you're being swallowed. The straw tick is lumpy, and it rustles every time you breathe. But you're getting used to it. Because things are changing. You've heard the whispers at the market about people buying new beds. Ones with proper frames. Ones with ropes that don't need tightening every few weeks, or even with wooden slats that don't sag. Mattresses with feathers so thick they need to be beaten daily to keep them fluffy. Sheets that actually get washed more than once in a blue moon. Blankets so heavy you need help to pull them over your shoulders. And the talk of springs. Metal coils that push back when you lie on them. You can't even picture that. Your mother called it witchcraft. Your father called it unnecessary. But your cousin said if he ever had one, he'd sleep until next harvest. You smile at the thought, because you can see it happening. Not for you, not for your parents, but maybe for the children you don't have yet. Because medicine is changing too. The barber surgeon who used to bleed you for everything is starting to talk about balance in other ways. Better food, cleaner water, not just hacking open your vein and hoping the problem drains out. And there's talk of the air, that it might not be poisoned after all. That maybe you can open the shutter in the day and let the fresh wind in without dying of the plague. Historians still argue whether people really believe the old ways worked, or if they just didn't have a choice. You think it's both. Because what choice did you have? Your mother had seen too many neighbors cough themselves to death. Your father had watched too many funerals for people who went to bed and didn't get back up. Of course they propped you up. Of course they kept the air still. Of course they shut the world out. You can't blame them, but you can hope it will change. You close your eyes, listening to your family breathe. Your father's snoring is quieter now, as if even he's too exhausted to keep up the noise. Your mother shifts and sighs, pulling the blanket higher under her chin. Your cousin mumbles something that might be a prayer or a curse. You all reek of smoke and sweat and damp wool. The chamber pot is full. The shutter rattles every time the wind gusts. The fire is down to coals. But you're alive, and you're lying back, even if just a little. You think about the towns you visited, how the wealthier houses already have proper chimneys, ones that don't backdraft smoke into the room, how some even have stoves instead of open hearths, safer, cleaner, warmer. And in those houses, people lie down, flat, comfortable, without fear. You can almost see it. A room with whitewashed walls, not black with soot. A clean floor instead of straw scattered to catch filth. A bed with thick mattresses and real sheets. A fire behind a grate, glowing safely all night. No one needing to sit up like a sentry guarding against death. No one terrified of bad air or evil spirits pressing on their chest. Just sleep. Actual sleep. The kind that carries you away and brings you back whole. You swallow, blinking back tears you'd never admit to, because you want that. Not for you. You know better. But for them, for your cousin who kicks in his sleep, for your mother who never really rests, even when she's snoring, for the kids you might have someday, if you're lucky. You want them to lie back, to dream, to wake without pain. You let your eyes close again, breathing slow and careful. You feel the straw shift as you sink just a little deeper. Your blanket scratches your chin, but it's warm enough. The wind keeps wailing at the shutter. You think you hear the first hint of dawn in the chill, that pale light that makes everything in the room glow ghostly blue. You shiver, but you don't sit up. Not yet, because you're trying to change, trying to rest, trying to believe it'll get better. You listen to your father snore, your mother breathe, your cousin mumble, and you let your head fall back the last inch. You're still scared, of bad airs, of old fears, of the weight on your chest that might come for you in your dreams. But you're tired, so tired, and for now, you'll sleep. Flat, breathing, hoping. You let your breath soften now. Feel the weight of the day and the night sink deep into the mattress, as lumpy and old as it is. You ease your eyes shut and let the fire's last glow fade from behind your eyelids. The wind outside still wails, but it's further now, softer, like a lullaby that only wants you to listen without worry. Your mother's breathing evens out beside you, a gentle rhythm that says it's safe to let go. Your father snores slow, and even your cousin seems to stop kicking, settling into that hushed quiet that fills rooms just before dawn. The cold is still here, but it's muted by shared blankets and shared bodies. The fear lingers too, but you tuck it under the layers like everything else. You promise yourself you'll tighten the ropes tomorrow, sweep out the worst of the straw, maybe even patch the shutter one last time before winter truly closes in. But for now, there's nothing to fix, nothing to fear. You let your muscles loosen. Let your head rest all the way back. Let your chest rise and fall without fighting it. You picture that safer hearth, that better bed. Maybe it isn't yours yet, but you can see it. And for a moment, that's enough. So breathe in. Let the dark hold you gently. Feel the hush spread through your limbs, soft and warm. Let sleep come fully, because you've earned it. You're safe, you're home, and you can rest.